Upon working on my last video, I realized something about Metal Gear Solid 5 that I've neglected so far. The fact that the mission, Shining Lights Even in Death, is probably the best point within Metal Gear Solid 5, from a narrative standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, and for explaining Venom Snake's character. So I figured today I'd change things up a little bit and stop looking at large scopes for games and instead narrow the video's focus down on analyzing this mission and just explain why I think it's so good. Like pretty much every interesting narrative point within the Phantom Pain, this mission starts off with an emergency call hailing Venom Snake back to base. Apparently there's been another breakout in the quarantine facility of the parasites that at this point Mother Base thought had been cured. No one really knows what's going on, but all we know is that a team has been sent in there and nothing's happened. No word has come from them. Venom Snake of course offers to go in on his own, knowing that if they send more men in there, they're likely to just cause more panic and have more members get infected. And Venom Snake, being the proponent of Big Boss's supposed core beliefs of the soldiers on Mother Base or MSF being family, would rather put his own life on the line as Big Boss rather than see more of his soldiers, more of his family suffer. While Cause is opposed to this initially, Venom Snake talks him out of it. After this setup is done, the player is brought back to the chopper in order to select the mission, and upon doing so, they are treated with perhaps one of the creepiest cutscenes in the game. This is filmed kind of Blair Witch style first-person's perspective of what the research team or what the investigation team found when they went into the quarantine platform. It's a bloody mess, and it kind of feels like a cheesy zombie B-movie, which is more at home with Metal Gear than a lot of what we see in the Phantom Pain, that cheesy homage to movies that Kojima has grown up liking or just has happened to see that day. So it's cheesy, however, the tense atmosphere is undeniable, and it's clear from the get-go this mission is going to be much different than anything else we've experienced so far. In true Phantom Pain fashion, this cutscene doesn't drag on for too long, and we're instead brought back to the familiar setting of the chopper, as Code Talker explains exactly what we know so far. We know there's been communication from on the inside, we don't know what exactly it means, he's explaining the technicalities of the Wolbachia and how they should be cured. Essentially, it's a lot of really unnerving uncertainty. Especially right now with everything we got going on in real life, sitting down in this chopper and listening to Code Talker try to make sense out of a situation that no one really has control over, it's really unsettling. Once the player takes control of Venom Snake, your expectations of what walking around a Mother Base is like get subverted, as yes, you're walking around, your soldiers are saluting you, however, everyone's wearing masks now. Everything feels nervous. You walk towards this ominous white tent, and you really feel like you're walking into the lion's den. Another detail I love about the beginning of this mission is how if you look above the quarantine facility, you'll see the birds that become much more relevant as you figure out what exactly is going on, circling above, setting a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. Upon approaching the tent, it's sealed in behind you, and this is it. You're about to walk into the shit with no way out. Venom Snake and Cause exchange a couple more words, talking about the transmission they received and how it makes no sense, some guy talking about how he's one and he's no snail. It's really confusing, and the dialogue here is the same dry old dialogue that you get from Phantom Pain that really doesn't give you too much to go on. But it's once you get inside that the game gets a little stranger, and that foreshadowing I talked about before becomes a little more relevant. Venom Snake notes how it smells sweet as he enters, like fruit. Combining this with the idea of the transmission saying, "Oh, I'm no snail, everything smells like fruit," you're really off your rock here. You don't know what's going on, and the characters are all saying things that don't really make sense. You'd expect to just walk in there and, have these zombies that you've been dealing with when you've been fighting the skulls before show up, but that's not the case. Instead, they're talking about ripe fruit, and your men are just sitting on the floor, clawing themselves, coughing up blood, and you're just greeted to this non-hostile but Horrific scene. Hearing some noise up ahead, you draw your weapon, but then the game stops and plays a little scene of a guy freaking out and firing his weapon erratically at you. Confused and now tense, thinking that you might be shot, you clear your corners, but only see doctors on the floor suffering. You look into the room where the man came from, bloodstains in a body. Things clearly are out of control. As you continue your ascension to the top level to find out where the signal was coming from, you stumble into a room of one of the surviving team members, there with a few doctors, and you're relieved. Someone is still sane, someone isn't losing their mind. You can talk to them. Kaz says it's more important to search for the signal. The rescue team member then assures you that he's going to be fine and you should continue your search and come back for him after you figure out where the signal's coming from. You continue your ascension, but then you stumble across one of your men shooting his fellow soldier, his fellow family member. Dead. Both of them are sprawled out and covered in blood, clearly suffering from whatever has happened in here. And you just sit back in horror, walking by the guy, seeing that he's not hostile towards you, only to that specific member that he shot. At this point, Venom Snake has reached the top, ready to figure out the answer to all these riddles, preparing to confront the madman who sent out the signal. But instead, he finds a doctor with a knife plunged into his stomach, dying from being infected with this virus. He comes up to the man who says, "I win." He seems content to Venom's confusion. He says, "I'm no snail." Before being able to get any answers to the questions, the doctor dies. And as Venom Snake picks up the peculiar set of goggles this doctor had, Venom Snake, Code Talker, and Ocelot all start talking about everything that's been experienced until now. Upon thinking snails, the fact that the virus smells like ripe fruit, the fact that members are killing each other towards exits, the fact that this doctor seems so content dying before leaving, it all becomes clear. The virus can spread. The birds smell it as fruit and will feast on the bodies, spreading it to the mainlands. It's at this point that everything becomes super tense as everyone says, "Snake, you cannot let anyone out of there. If anyone escapes this quarantine facility, it means having this very deadly virus spreading across the rest of the world." As if on cue, your soldiers burst out of the door and they swarm Venom Snake. He's trying to hold them back, but there's too many of them. One of them starts running up the stairs and he puts a bullet in their leg, already pushing on his beliefs about hurting his own men. But then, they burst through the door. Venom Snake is left with no choice but to pull out his sidearm, kill the men holding him back, stop the other man from going out, and order a napalm bombing outside, ensuring that the birds do not feast on the few members that escaped. It's at this point that everything truly goes to hell. As he watches his men burn alive, he barely has any time to process what the hell just happened before even more men burst through the door and control is given back to the player. And now it's up to us, the player, to do what we know has to be done. Now we enter the room that we initially entered as a savior, as a killer. We come in to bring the men who are looking up to us to figure out a way to get them out of here. And we look them all in the eye as we put them down, each member you walked by, one by one. Using the special goggles you got from the doctor, you can see the virus living within the throats of your men, knowing there really is no way out of here for them. You stalk these bloodied hallways, with the only sound being louder than the cries and gunfire being Venom's shaky, heavy breaths. While most soldiers look up at you in confusion as to what's going on, why is their idol putting them down? Some try to fight back at you, refusing the fate you're forcing upon them, but they all die. All the same. This isn't outer heaven, this is hell, and Venom Snake really is a demon, bringing death to each room he goes. You make your way back to the surviving team member's room, but notice he isn't there, just 2 dead doctors. Continuing on with your massacre, you enter a room where a soldier recognizes exactly what's going on, and rather than beg or resist his fate, he says, "It's alright if it's you, boss," stands up, and willingly accepts the fate that you are forcing on him. As you continue your executions, Huey calls you and starts calling you a madman for killing your own men. Kaz scolds him and tells him that what has to be done is necessary, but Huey doesn't stop, saying, "This isn't the big boss I know. You said we are all supposed to be family." Upon reaching the basement, you hear the familiar tune of the Peace Walker theme as men argue about how they need to get outside and how some know that they can't go outside and are stopping them from going, and everyone's fighting. But as you enter, the fighting stops. The men stand up and say, "We live and die by your orders, boss," and all stand there, allowing you to decide if you're going to let them go or if you're going to kill them right then and there. And at this point here, you know exactly what you're going to do. You execute each and every one of them to the tune, to the anthem of MSF. The grittiness comes to a halt all of a sudden though, because in the corner you see, through your goggles, that there's a man who isn't infected. It's the survivor from the room before, sitting in the corner, virus-free. You pick him up, excited that you're actually able to rescue someone. This was not all in vain. You can save one of your men. So you hurry back up the stairs, getting out to the room, when all of a sudden, the soldier stops you and says he doesn't think he made it. You put him down and see that the virus spread into him. The soldier suggests that it was through his wounds and that not to worry about it, he accepts his fate. But you're just sitting there with the ultimate cock tease of having almost saved one of your men. But now that you're so close to the exit, so close to bringing this man to salvation, you have to put him down like the rest. And of course, you do so. At this point, as the player, you continue towards the exit because you're ready to just move on, get this nightmare over with, and return to the fun game you've been playing. But Venom stops because he's not ready. He goes back and walks through the carnage that he caused, observes the death that came from his hands. Unlike the real big boss, Venom Snake genuinely believes that these men, his comrades, are his family, that they've given everything up to live, die, and fight side by side. He even made a point earlier in the game of stabbing himself in the chest to show that harming another member of Diamond Dogs is just like harming himself, and that he'd rather be stabbed than stab one of his fellow soldiers. This same man who firmly believes in the principles taught to him by the original real big boss has just violated every single oath that he's taken, every single standard he's decided to uphold as an example. Everything that within Venom's mind that Big Boss stands for, he just dropped. He killed his own men. He killed his family. And it crushes him. And keep in mind, this is also the medic from Ground Zeroes who, as we see throughout the game, regrets not being able to save Paz, regrets later on not being able to save Quiet. This is a man who's constantly failing to save people. It's probably why he put up with so much bullshit from Eli, why he's gone through so many lengths to spare Quiet's life. But now, once again, he's failed to save the people he cares about the most, and he just sits there in silence and suffers. We then cut to Big Boss, Venom Snake, standing as his men, their corpses are being cremated. He watches every lick of flame go by, one by one. These men who believed in him are being turned to ash. We cut to the day after, as his men are preparing to throw the ashes overboard, Huey berating Venom Snake for being a murderer and betraying his men. And while Cause goes to defend Snake, Venom simply says no, he's right, showing that Venom Snake truly believes that he has failed on a fundamental level as Big Boss. Cause wants to proceed with the funeral to get over it, but Venom stops. He grabs the ashes and goes to kneel down to pour them into the sea himself, but realizes that's no better than when he killed his men. He refuses to scatter their suffering, their sorrow to the heartless sea. He then ingests the ashes and states his intentions as he rubs the ashes all over his face. He will always be with his men. Their suffering will be a part of him. He then clarifies to Cause, saying, "We will take these ashes and turn them into diamonds, and we will wear them as we go into battle, so we can still in some way fulfill our promise of living and dying together as family." This is when Cause says, "Shining lights, even in death." And Venom Snake uses his pain, his sorrow, and turns it into resolve, saying, "We are Diamond Dogs," as the camera fades to black. This mission is, without a doubt, the single most greatest mission of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, for a couple reasons. One, it shows us the most character and character development out of Venom Snake, a character that is otherwise almost a background character for the majority of the game. Here we see him, his ideals in practice, what he does when those ideals are challenged, and how he comes together as a leader to pull his men together in hard times. This mission is also great because of the pacing. When you're going to the platform, everything has this somber tone. You can see the birds before you know their significance. Making your way up to the guy and getting the goggles is a chilling experience, but then understanding what those goggles are for and what you have to do going back everywhere that you were already at to put all of your men down is devastating. Even if you don't care about the story, from a gameplay perspective, each one of these men levels up your base. So if you don't care about what's going on, you still care to a certain extent, because like Venom Snake is damaging his own men, you're damaging your own base system. So even if you're heartless, this mission still hits you as a player and breaks the fourth wall, showing how it's affecting you and Venom Snake at the same time. The amount of little side stories that are all happening at once with all the men that you interact with. The soldier who willingly gives his life understanding the scenario, the soldier that tries to fight back, or the soldier you thought you could save but end up having to put down after seeing him as the only sane and relatable member still standing. It's all heartbreaking. There's so much personality into each one of these little encounters that make it feel so much more than just putting down statistics on your little iDroid, even if that's all this is to you. Effort was put into here. All these story elements, it feels like a Metal Gear game. Unlike the rest of Phantom Pain, where it's devoid of a lot of character and more so just straight to the point or cliched, this feels more like a heart-wrenching scene from Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3. And the details, the way it's set up, it all builds up to create this cinematic experience, which is what Metal Gear is actually all about. So to summarize, the character development we see the main character go through, the pacing and teases is what's going to happen later on in the mission, the little side stories and interesting character interactions that you go through, and the heart-wrenching Metal Gear-esque nature of the mission make it the standout best narrative mission in the game. And I don't know why I neglected to even talk about it till now. I made a video analyzing Venom Snake, but didn't mention this scene. And I think living through COVID has made me see the weight of dealing with pandemics differently. I talk about that more in the last video I made, and I don't want to get too grim on you guys. But yeah, this is what I feel the best mission of Metal Gear Solid 5 is, and I feel this mission alone can stand up in terms of emotional weight to the death of the boss, or to the death of Sniper Wolf, or other dramatic points in the series. So I just wanted to bring that up, and maybe next time you play through Phantom Pain, you'll pay more attention. If I pointed out something in this mission you didn't notice, or if you also really like this mission, or if there's another narrative mission in Metal Gear Solid 5 that you think is better, like, comment, subscribe for more Metal Gear content. Let's talk about this down below. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. This has been Pliskin, over and out.